ओम नमः प्रणवार्थाय शुद्धज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे यस्यात्मभूतस्य गुरोः प्रसादात् अहं विमुक्तोऽस्मि शरीरबन्धात्। सर्वोपदेष्टुः पुरुषोत्तमस्य तस्याङ्घ्रियुग्मं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यम्। Is moksha attainable? That was the question we raised in the previous class. All the religious literatures, avatars and mahatmas speak about this particular thing called moksha as the highest human achievement. When we hear them speak that it is an achievement, then the question comes, is it an attainable one? If it is an attainable one, how can it be a permanent one? Anything which is attained is going to be a future affair, is going to be in the form of a karma phalam, in the form of a result of a action, result of various actions. If it is attained, it cannot be permanent. If it is impermanent, how can it be called as moksha? Therefore, we asked a question, is moksha attainable? To answer this question, Vedanta asked, what do you mean by moksha? What do you mean by bondage? Moksha is a word. In Sanskrit, moksha means freedom. From which you want to have freedom? So when we search for answer, what is the meaning of moksha? Then naturally we stare at ourselves because we really don't know what is moksha. So we ask again the Vedanta, can you enlighten us? What is the meaning of moksha? Because every individual has his own idea of moksha. For an ordinary person, dying in Kashi is called moksha. Or dying in a particular time, Uttarayana, is called moksha. For a little bit informed person, reaching the Lord's abode is called moksha. For a philosopher, knowing the truth is called moksha. Then you ask, what is the truth? He has his own idea of truth. So everyone has their own idea of the word moksha. So we are confused. As a materialistic person, that person outright rejects the idea of moksha at all. There is nothing called moksha at all. Last class we saw that. As a religious person, we cannot do that. We cannot reject that idea of moksha, but still we have our own vagueness in understanding that word. Therefore, when we approach Vedanta, it clearly defines the moksha. What is moksha? Brahma bhavaha hi mokshaha. Being Brahman is mokshaha. One more word is introduced. The word Brahman. You ask again, what is the meaning of Brahman? Then it says, according to Sanskrit grammar, Brahman means infinite. Being infinite is moksha. That's how it is defined. Yatra nanyat pashyati, nanyat shrunoti, nanyat vijanati, sa bhuma. Yatra anyat pashyati, anyat shrunoti, anyat vijanati, tad alpam. Bhumaiva sukham, nalpe sukham asti. I asked meaning for one Sanskrit word. You introduced one more Sanskrit word, Brahman. Again I asked what is the meaning of Brahman. You introduced more than 30 Sanskrit words. The meaning of this mantra is that which is infinite is called freedom. That which is limited is called bondage. Alpe sukham na asti. Alpa. In Tamil also you can understand. Alpam சொல்லுவாங்க இல்லையா? ஏன் அல்ப மாதிரி இருக்கிற? So alpa is a word for being limited. Alpe sukham nasti. Bhuma eva sukham. Bhuma means again infinite. Like Brahman is equal to infinite, similarly Bhuma also infinite. So that Bhuma word is defined here. Yatra nanyat pashyati, nanyat shrunoti, nanyat vijanati. Infinite is that in which there is no second entity to be seen, to be heard, to be known. In another place, Vedanta defines this moksha. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhut vijanataha tatra ko mohaha kashokaha ekatvam anupashyataha. When a person understands that I am everything, then where is the question of mohaha, shokaha? Where is the question of bondage? So varieties of mantras are there. In every Upanishad, many mantras define the word called moksha. All definitions are same, maybe in different words, but definitions are same. Brahma bhavaha hi mokshaha. Being infinite is moksha. Then what is bondage? Jiva bhavaha hi samsaraha. Being a limited entity, being a parichinnaha, being a limited entity is called samsaraha. My Acharya Swamiji used to say, being Mr. Private Limited is called samsara. Mr. Private Limited. So being an individual is samsara. Nahavai sasharirasya sataha priya priyayoho apagatirasti. Sasharirasya. For a limited individual, sa shariraha, one who has identified himself with shariram, body, limited body, priya priyayoho, sukha dukkhayoho, apahatihi na asti. There is no freedom from sukha and dukkha for an individual who identifies himself with a limited entity called body. Dvidiyad vai bhayam bhavati. Another mantra says, Dvidiyad vai bhayam bhavati. If there is second entity other than you, then you are subject to bondage. In another place, Brahmatam paradad yo anyatra atmanaha brahma veda, kshatram tam paradad yo anyatra atmanaha kshatram veda, lokaha tam paraduhu yo anyatra atmanaha lokan veda, devaha tam paraduhu yo anyatra atmanaha devan veda, vedaha tam paraduhu yo anyatra atmanaha vedan veda, bhutani tam paraduhu yo anyatra atmanaha bhutani veda. In short, sarvam tam paradat yo anyatra atmanaha sarvam veda. Anyone who finds that there is something second entity in the form of loka, in the form of world, in the form of devata, in the form of bhutas, other individuals, tam parada, he is rejected. Rejection means he is in bondage. Yada hevaisha etasmin udaramantaram kurute athatasya bhayam bhavati. Another mantra. When a person finds even a little bit of, even an iota of differentiation between himself and the world, between himself and the Lord, atatasya bhayam bhavati. So these are all the mantras which define samsara. Thus, being parichinnaha is called bondage. Being limited, small, is called bondage. How? Being limited, being small, I find in front of me a vast creation. Huge mountains, vast ocean, thunders, human beings, beasts, animals, all are the source of threat to me, source of threat to my existence. Therefore, I have fear and I want to get rid of this. All struggles in human life is to get rid of this smallness, this parichinnatvam alone. All struggle in human life is to be free from this smallness. How can he say so? I struggle for money, I struggle for wealth, power, position. How can you connect my day-to-day struggle towards the moksha? Let us analyze that. Every human being is a conscious entity. Being conscious entity, it has the capacity to be conscious of oneself. That capacity is called Jnana Shakti. Every individual, every human being is a cognitive entity. Cognitiveness means being conscious of oneself. Being self-conscious one with a capacity to judge oneself, the person finds himself lacking in terms of so many things in life. In terms of size, he finds he is very small. Even if he is 6.5 feet height and 120 kilo weight, he is still small in front of a mountain, in front of an elephant. So he is very small, size-wise. In terms of lifetime, he finds himself that maximum 100 years, 110 years of lifetime. In terms of physical appearance, he finds himself lacking with regard to color, with regard to height, with regard to weight, with regard to hair. In so many aspects, in terms of physical appearance, he is lacking. In terms of emotions, he finds himself, he lacks love, security, happiness, peace. In terms of knowledge, he finds that however much he is educated, his knowledge is very, very insignificant in front of the varieties of department of knowledge. Similarly, in terms of wealth, power, position, name, fame, in all these terms, that individual finds that he is a small, insignificant, and a lacking entity. And this self-judgment is an inevitable one, being a cognitive individual. Only human beings have this capacity to judge oneself. Animals don't have this capacity. That is why they don't bother about their color, they don't go for purchasing cosmetics, fair and lovely. They don't go for applying for visa to USA. See, they don't have any self-awareness. And this self-awareness, self-judgment is an inborn capacity, and because of that, I find myself as a wanting person. Being a wanting person, being a parichinnaha, being a limited, inadequate person, I cannot find satisfaction with myself. Even if I find satisfaction with myself, others are there to point out all those deficiencies. My teacher will point out, idiot. That means what? He points out, when my teacher calls me idiot, my teacher points out that I am limited with regard to knowledge. Similarly, others. Everyone points out what I lack. And I also have my self-judgment that I lack so many things, and society confirms that judgment. So being a wanting person, I cannot be satisfied one, fulfilled one. I cannot be happy with my wanting personality. Therefore, I am suffocated by various types of wants in order to fulfill those lacuna. Therefore, only there is an urge to be free from all these wants, to be free from all these limitations, from inadequacy, and to become a significant entity. I should prove myself as a significant entity. That desire comes. That desire alone is expressed from childhood onwards. As a child, the child finds that it is very small in front of its parent. So it wants to grow big, huge as parent. Therefore, what it does? It tries to step inside the chapel of the father, tries to wear the shirt of the father. What does it mean? Being small physically means it's insecurity. Therefore, it wants to grow. Becoming an adult is a great project for that child. Okay, as even he is becoming an adult, it finds that becoming adult is not the solution for my limitations. I should be educated. I should be an educated adult. So it goes for education. Then after completing education also, after completing PhD also, that wanting personality doesn't go away. Society points out, so what? You are PhD, so what? Do you have money? What is the use of your degrees? Go for employment. Go for wealth. Then he becomes a wealthy person. Then society asks, so what? What you are going to do with your crores? Unless you have someone to share your life, what is the use of that wealth? So then comes marriage. While marrying, this person thinks that I am lacking. Therefore, I require someone in my life to fulfill me. Therefore, I should go for one person. I am off and my spouse will be off. After marriage, I will be full, one. My Acharya Swamiji used to say this. Off plus off is equal to one, full. But what happens? Unfortunately, half multiplied by half. Instead of becoming one, marriage life becomes quarter. So after marriage also he finds himself. Society points out, what is the use of married person? You should have a child. There comes fulfillment of marriage life. Then he tries to become a father. Of course, by God's grace he becomes a father. Then also he finds himself same private limited entity. Then comes urge to be powerful, with high position, with huge power. Like that, all struggles in entire human life is for becoming someone better than the present one. This urge to become someone better than the present condition is the cause for all pravrittis and nivrittis. What I want to become differs from time to time, but that I want to become someone doesn't go away. As a child, I want to become an adult. As an adult, I want to become a married person. As a married person, I want to become a father. As a father, I want to become a rich person. But in every urge, I want to become is constant. What I want to become differs, but that I want to become doesn't differ at all. And in fact, this desire that I want to become someone is carried forward in the next Janma also, is carried forward in the religious life also. Not only in material life. When the person finds himself educated with high position, power, surrounded by so many relatives and children and grandchildren, again he finds, I am still limited. So therefore, he wants to become a religious person. He wants to become a bhakta. How much time you want to become a bhakta? Eternally I want to become a bhakta. No, eternally you cannot be bhakta, you will die. No, after the death of the body also I want to become bhakta. So carry forward to next Janma, next existence. So I want to become a citizen of heaven. Initially, when I was 25-year-old, I want to become a citizen of United States of America. Now I want to become a citizen of heaven. Then having gone also, all right, are you satisfied? No, I want to become Indra. Then having attained Indratva, are you satisfied? No, I want to become Brihaspati. Because Indra is under the feet of Brihaspati. What to do? Deva Guru. I want to go here, I want to go there. After my death also. So therefore, this desire to become someone other than the present one continues forever. While living in material life, he has certain agenda to become. In religious life, he has certain agenda to become. And in spiritual life also, he has renounced everything. He has gone to forest. Then also he is struggling, sitting 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours in meditation. You ask him, "Oh Mahatma, why you are doing this?" He says, I want to attain Nirvikalpaka Samadhi. Again becoming, you see. I want to attain God. I want to see God. So this want continues. And this urge to become someone better, significant, free from all wants is very, very natural urge. It is universal. In what field I want to become someone better differs person to person. But to become someone better is very, very natural and universal. Nobody teaches us. It is not a cultivated desire. My Acharya Swamiji used to say, it is not a cultivated desire. Like a desire for car, for gold, for TV, for diamond, for a flat. These are all cultivated desires. But desire for food, desire for water is not cultivated desire. It is very, very natural and universal desire. Similarly, this desire to become someone better is universal and natural desire. That is called mumukshutvam. In Vedantic terminology, this desire to become someone better, to be free from all wants, to be free from limitations, to be free from smallness is called mumukshutva. Moktum ichuhu mumukshuhu. Tasya bhavaha mumukshutva. One who wants to be free from what? Free from this smallness. Free from the present condition. Free from insignificancy. Therefore, this urge can never be dismissed. Urge to purchase a diamond necklace can be dismissed. Seeing your money purse, it can be dismissed. But this urge to be free from smallness can never be dismissed. That is why lots of pressure. Lots of pressure in everybody's life. And there is a struggle to express this pressure. Ordinary person expresses this pressure in one way. He wants to be significant. He wants to stand out in the crowd. Therefore, what he does? Whatever he can do, that only he can do. So what he does, he does his hairstyle different way. That only he can do. So funk hairstyle. That's the means for him to stand out in the crowd. And for mothers, a particular sari, a particular necklace, a particular dress. So the individual tries to be significant, to stand out in a crowded society by changing the small external things. Then he finds there are so many people who have the same funk hairstyle. Goti dadi, one ring. Sheep dadi or shepherd dadi. Goti dadi they call it. These are all natural expressions. Why a boy who is born to a cultured family, instead of having shika, instead of having 2 rings on both ears, that is the cultured dress code. Why he wants to have funk hairstyle? Because everywhere this same traditional dressing is there. I want to be someone different. When everyone wears jeans, then this fellow sees, aha, now jeans has become the order of the day, therefore I will go for panchakacha. I will go for Shika. Nowadays Shika is becoming more popular, If you go to IITs and IIScs, varieties of Shikas you can see. Half Shika, quarter Shika, full Shika. Varieties. Shika means, the tuft. So there is an urge to change his external appearance. Therefore he applies Fair and Lovely without knowing that already he is Fair and Lovely. And he finds that everybody applies the same Fair and Lovely. So this is not, changing appearance is not the thing that is going to make me a significant one in the society. So he goes for education, he goes for wealth. And wealth doesn't fulfill him. He himself finds, even if he gains some crores, he finds there are thousands crores. Only few crore you have. There are people who have Swiss bank account wherein they themselves don't know how much they have. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, wife asked the husband, Yennumayiyam bhago sarva prithivi vittena purnasyam tena amritasyamiti. When Yajnavalkya Rishi offered whatever his savings to Maitreyi, that mother asked, you want to give half of your earnings, half of your savings. All right, I ask one suppositional question. Suppose if I become the owner of the wealth of the entire world, tena amritasyamiti, will I become a significant one? Will I become a fulfilled one? Na idi hovacha Yajnavalkyaha. Never. Wealth can never fulfill you. That was the reply. In another Upanishad we find an 8-year-old boy says to his teacher, when his teacher cajoled him with a lot of wealth, Na vittena tarpaniyo manushyaha. Can you point out one individual who has fulfilled himself because of wealth? So wealth also doesn't fulfill the individual. Then again, he goes for sense pleasures. Kamaha. To fulfill himself, he pursues kamaha. But there also the problem, because fulfillment of sense pleasure always in the form of an experience. An experience is always in the form of repetition. Being repeated, same thing, same ice cream. One day you get bored. Same ice cream brings you bored. Therefore, the person goes for varieties of ice cream parlors. Baskin Robinson. Local Avin is out. Western Robin has come. Then he finds same thing only this way, that way, little bit different. So Kama also doesn't fulfill him. Then power, position, and so on. He finds with his observing nature, being self-conscious entity, any amount of addition of these things is not fulfilling me. None of the means are helping me to find myself as a fulfilled one. At the same time, he finds that this urge to be fulfilled cannot be dismissed, and the means available are not effective. They are inefficient in fulfilling me. By the time he becomes old. So the pursuit of artha, kama, name and fame all are reduced. Then he says, I want to have a peaceful retired life. Again, you see, I want to. Enough, running is enough. So again, he wants something, peace. Thus, the desire to become significant is never-ending, choiceless, natural and universal desire. Being universal and natural, he cannot dismiss it. At the same time, whatever means available to him are not effective in fulfilling that desire, so he discovers his helplessness. He discovers his helplessness in the material pursuit. Then he crashes a temple or an ashrama and tries to find someone. Is there anyone fulfilled? Anyone fulfilled? And when he is not able to find, at least, was there anyone fulfilled? Was the question. So he goes to a bookstore and tries to find out, was there anyone? Then he finds a lot of books of great Mahatmas. Then he starts reading. So he comes across that idea, yes, there were some people, there may be some people who are fulfilled. And he finds a sadhu sitting under the tree, having nothing, no bank account, no place to stay, not even having proper cloth, doesn't know where he will get food the next day. But he is happy and fulfilled. So the person who has this urge, who has discovered his helplessness, that it is futile to try to be fulfilled by having wealth, by having sense pleasure, by having power and position. One can struggle to become rich for getting comforts, but not for fulfillment. It is silly to think that wealth and richness will make oneself as a fulfilled person. Similarly, one can have a degree to get some knowledge in one particular department of knowledge, but it is silly to think that by having this particular degree, by having this PhD, I will be omniscient, all-knowing, sarvajnaha. Similarly, one can relate with people for sharing one's life, but it is silly to think that by having relatives, I will be secured, I will be fulfilled. Thus, this person who has found that helplessness by his own experiments in his life, pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmano nirvedamaya. He gets a conclusion. What is that conclusion? Nastya krita kritena. An individual who leads a disciplined life with observing the things which is going around finds a fact. What is that fact? What is that fact? Nastya kritaha kritena. By getting something, I am not going to be a fulfilled entity. Therefore, he searches for someone who appeared to be fulfilled without having any of these things, wealth or sense pleasure, relatives, house, nothing he has, but still he claims, that sadhu claims that I am fulfilled. Then goes to him, tad vijnanartam sa gurum eva abhigachet. Goes to that sadhu, goes to that fulfilled person and asks, how can I be a fulfilled one? Then that sadhu says, why should you become fulfilled? You are already fulfilled. You are already infinite. You are already significant. You are already limitless. Your self-judgment about yourself is a wrong judgment. How can you say that it is a wrong judgment? That sadhu says, it is a wrong judgment because you don't have proper data. All the data you have about yourself are not about yourself. Whatever we know about ourselves is not about ourselves. As I told in some other class, you ask someone, who are you? He says, I am Subramani. Hey, that is your name. Please tell, who are you? I am son of Manikavel. That is your father's name. Please tell, who are you? What data you have? Who are you means what? What are the data you have about yourself? Then he says, I am engineer. That is your profession. Tell, who are you? And someone may say, I am husband of so and so. Or wife of so and so. That is your relationship. Please tell, who are you? So all these answers given to this particular question prove that I don't have any proper data about myself. I have varieties of data about external things, about my body, about my relationship, about my degrees, about my wealth, about the people with whom I relate. None of them are valid to have a judgment, therefore I am limited. So that Sadhu points out, your self-judgment that you are limited is a wrong judgment because data are wrong. How can you say data are wrong? Because the source of data is wrong. What is the source of data? The 5 sense organs and mind. So they are all erroneous sources. If you have a judgment based on a data derived from erroneous sources, what will be the judgment? Judgment also is a wrong judgment, false judgment, erroneous judgment. Judgment will be erroneous judgment. And how many errors you have, with your source, with regard to your sense organs, with regard to your mind. So many errors you have. Among them, 6 are mentioned in the scripture. Ajnanam. Naturally, by birth you are ignorant. Ajnana. Viparjayaha. Samshayaha. Even if a little bit you know it wrongly. And with regard to that knowledge, you have doubt also. Then Indriyas are not a qualified instrument to reveal you. Apatu karanatvam they call it. So the sources of knowledge are erroneous. Therefore data is erroneous. Therefore judgment also is an erroneous judgment. So that sadhu, that Vedantic teacher, points out your self-judgment may be wrong. Please look at yourself. My dear, look at yourself. Atma va are drashtavyaha. Are means my dear. Drashtavyaha, you have to see. You have to look at yourself. Atma. Atma means you. You have to look at yourself. Whether you are a limited entity, whether you are a wanting person, a limited entity or not, you have to look at yourself. If your judgment that you are a limited entity, that you are a lacking person, insignificant one, if that is the fact, then there is no possibility of becoming significant and infinite entity. Why? Because you yourself has accepted as fact. What is the meaning of fact? That which cannot be changed is called fact, correct? What is the meaning of fact? That which cannot be changed is called fact. If limitations are the fact about yourself, why you struggle to change it? Because it cannot be changed. Therefore, you should have this possibility that you may be already significant, you may be already free from all limitations. This very possibility is encouraging the seeker. Because he has knocked all the doors. He has knocked the doors of health, wealth, power, position, sense pleasures. Every door he has knocked and found that what he seeking for is not available. Therefore, after knocking, after becoming tired, after discovering the helplessness, if the seeker goes to a teacher, then teacher points out, maybe you are already that. Tadu Tomasi. What you are seeking for, maybe already you are. It's a proposition, that's all. Then the person may ask, if I am that already, why I am searching for it? If I am infinite already, why I want to become infinite? The very fact I struggle to become infinite shows that I am finite. The very fact that I want to attain God shows what? I am different from God. Then the teacher says, may not be so. May not be so. You want to have something, and for that desire, there may be two reasons. One is you may be missing actually, another is you may be feeling like that you are missing. Actually, that thing may be missing in your life, one possibility. Another possibility is what? You feel like that, that's all. So take this proposition that I may be what I am seeking for. Because if you don't take this proposition, if you already concluded that you are not infinite, then there is no question of becoming infinite. Because finite entity, if you are a finite entity, if that is the fact about yourself, how can you become infinite? Therefore, either you must be infinite here and now, or you can never be infinite at any point of time. Either you must be Brahman here and now, or you can never become or attain Brahman. So it's a huge proposition. And when this proposition told, the seeker asks, if I am already full and complete, why I don't have that sense that I am full and complete? The teacher says, that's what the purpose of life, to discover this fact. In my view, in the view of Vedanta, in the view of Vedantic teacher, in the view of a fulfilled person, every individual is Purnaha. Every individual is that entity which he is seeking for. Therefore, entire life should be spent to find out whether this possibility is a fact in my life or not. Entire life to be spent for this, and it is a challenge for human being. It's a challenge for human intellect. It's a challenge for a thinking faculty, because Bhagavan has given this thinking faculty only to an human being. Why? The solution for all sufferings of human being is in the form of discovery of this fact, in the form of knowledge of this fact, that I am already infinite. And this proposition, this vision, this possibility of being full and complete already is really an amazing one, and it is available only in Vedantic culture. Nowhere, in no culture, in no scripture you find this proposition that you are already what you are seeking. Nowhere. And when the seeker lives with the person who is asserting this vision that as I am infinite, you also are infinite. When he lives with that sadhu, with that teacher, that seeker finds that there is a possibility of being infinite by discovering what is already as a fact. This discovery is called moksha. This discovery is called attaining God. This discovery that I am already one with God, I am already one with infinite, is called moksha. If God also a limited entity different from me, staying somewhere else, hiding behind the clouds, then I can talk about reaching him after death. I can talk about seeing him while living. If he is a limited entity, then he cannot be God at all, because any limited thing will have natural death. So destruction is the end of any limited entity. And moksha, if you find that it is limited, if it is limited by time, if it is limited by certain actions, if it is a result of certain actions, then it is subject to destruction. Therefore, there is no other possibility. There is no other possibility of becoming free other than discovering that I am already free. In the last class we saw varieties of possibilities were given. Going to heaven was one possibility. Going to higher heaven in the name of Vaikunta, Shivaloka, that also Loka only. And there also Salokya, Samipya, Sarupya, Sayujya, like that varieties of proposals are given. And all these proposals have deficiencies. In the last class I explained to you. You may be the citizen in the Lord's abode, but still you will have a desire. I want to become the servant of the Lord. Where? In Vaikunta also. Okay, you are allowed to serve the Lord. Then also you will say, I want to serve the Lord all the time. Lakshmi Devi will never allow you. All right, even if you are allowed to be, then slowly you will tell what? All the time I am serving. When I am going to become Lord? So Vedanta is very clear with regard to this idea. Either you must be free here and now, or you can never be. Anything comes as a result of any action or many actions cannot be called as real achievement at all. So therefore, for the question, is moksha attainable? What is the answer? What is the answer? Innanavo sonninga Swami. For the question, is moksha attainable? What is the answer? If the word attainable means an action, it is not attainable. If the word attainable means discovery, it is attainable. In future classes, we will see more details. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.